Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 413 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Donald Reno. And if you want to hear the story of how chiropractic saved his mother's life, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm really excited for this one. We got Donald Reno coming in from Michigan, and I, your host, James Chester, am coming in from Colorado today. And this is episode 413. We've been trucking along with this chiropractic message. And before we get into this episode, I'm just going to let you guys know the big why, the why behind our show. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? Well, freedom of speech is very important to us. So we do protect freedom of speech, medical freedom. I think that's it's something that's right, like on the precipice of necessity. It always has been. But one of the reasons our show exists is to protect freedom of speech in the medical arena. Number two, we protect the sacred trust. And I always urge people, if you don't know what the sacred trust is, go to your favorite search engine in the search field and search for BJ Palmer Sacred Trust. And you'll know a whole lot more about why we do what we do. We support subluxation-based chiropractic also. That's another big word that you might want to put into your search field if you don't know what that means. And then we support innate intelligence and universal intelligence. And the tenets of the chiropractic philosophy are so important to the future of chiropractic. So we believe that when someone gets adjusted, it connects man or woman, the physical to man or woman, the spiritual, and nobody wants to be subluxated. So with that being said, Don, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about being here.
Yeah, well, there's a lot that we can talk about. You're up there in Michigan, and you do something with your it's called MichiCare, which I will talk more about. But you've been in the chiropractic profession doing private practice for 37 years.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 43, in case anybody's curious. So just to know that you've been dedicated to all the things that we stand for a whole lot longer than me, I'm sure there's a really cool story behind that. And, you know, I tell people, Don, all the time, I urge you, because your friends, your family, your colleagues, patients, they're going to hear this message of who you are. And some people have an idea who Dr. Don Reno is, but maybe they don't know exactly who you are, or they may have forgotten your story. So let's send a refresher out to everybody and tell people how you got into chiropractic.
Well, chiropractic was something that actually was in my family. My grandfather's uncle was a chiropractor. Went to Palmer very early on, obviously with my grandfather being passed for over 15 years. So, but that wasn't the reigning approach to healthcare in our family. Moving that ahead to my teen years, I got myself an off-road dirt bike and buzzed through the woods in northern Michigan and ran across a trail that had some tree stumps on it, and tree stumps always rule over the front end of a dirt bike, and it throws its rider as far as it can. So I ended up in a pretty nasty situation with the potential to have some spinal surgery, but had a very dear friend come and say, "Nah, you're not going to have surgery. I'm taking you to the chiropractor." And I'm like, "I'm not going to the chiropractor." He says, "Yes, you are. I'm coming over to get you." So I couldn't fight him off if I wanted to. Yes, he took me to the chiropractor. And, you know, when you're 18 and a half years old, still pretty damn cocky, didn't really think the chiropractor was going to help me, but prevailed on that, and then had an amazing change in my full health picture, which was the cell. That was the big thing that made me want to go to chiropractic college and changed from electrical engineering or dentistry as an interest and found myself going down to Life Chiropractic College at that time. So it was trauma and change that caused the whole, toxins, thoughts, and traumas got me right on the track for chiropractic.
What was life back there? What was it like back at life back in the early 80s?
Well, I've been to the campus recently. Doesn't look even remotely the same. It was a really interesting dynamic because we had people coming from, life was in a big boom when I went to school down there in the early 80s. There were people from a lot of different states. We had a lot of individuals from New York and Florida and Michigan. Those were really big seed states because of DE at that time. Small campus, you knew everybody knew you knew people in other quarters. So it was a pretty intimate setting.
Well, I know that DE is a big thing in chiropractic, and there's a lot of people that will listen to our show that don't know what that is. So can you just elaborate a little bit on what DE stands for and why it's important to the chiropractic world?
Sure. DE stands for Dynamic Essentials that still exists today. One of the main focuses of that was the giving, caring, loving, and serving that was connected to being a chiropractor. It's centered on a give back to the college. It had some of my personal heroes involved with it. I actually went to DE not all that long after that motorcycle accident, and it was part of the catalyst for me to go to Life University because of the speakers that I saw on the platform, their messages, their love for the profession, and the welcoming atmosphere that they created for a non-student, yet some of the students that are on campus.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand that too. And being around Sid Williams, tell me a cool Sid Williams story.
Well, I had a short stint working for Sid. I kind of inherited a job. I was a bit of an assistant. I helped them to set up some of their vendor. They had a company called Signell, which was Sid and Nell. They sold all kinds of chiropractic supportive materials, pamphlets, et cetera, et cetera. I had to cart that stuff to different hotels. The cool Sid Williams story, I guess, was he took a lot of time to make sure that I was called to his beck and call while class hours were going on. So sometimes I had to say, Dr. Sid, can I go to class? You say, well, boy, I just want you to do this, this, and this. And when that's over with, you can go back to class.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. So part two of our first question is uniqueness. And I know you do this program called MichiCare. And I'm curious to know more about that. And I'm sure our listeners need to know more about that. So can you elaborate on MichiCare and how it was developed and what it's doing today?
Well, it was developed, I would say, in a collaborative between the executive committee and the board of the MAC, as well as the executive director, Chris Dowell. We recognize the increased administrative burdens that chiropractors have. I think it's a total waste of time for a chiropractor to be in their business office doing a darn thing. There's no return on investment. They don't make people healthier. So what we did is we took an existing entity and we started looking at non-dues revenue, and we see the perpetual existence of our state association from a non-dues revenue basis. Dues revenue may not be enough for any association to continue on. So, the basis of it is to get doctors out of their office, put the fund back in practice, and be able to do a lot of that virtually. So we initially launched a virtual billing program. It was absolutely during COVID. We had no employees. Wes Hoffrichter, my integrator, we used the traction model, so I'll speak traction a little bit. Great support. Him and I started. We worked together. We brought on our first biller, and now we've grown to a team of 7. And with that team, we do the work of over 25 practices. And all the reports from those individuals is that they've got their hands on patients, and their income has increased. They have a quicker turnaround time on their billings, less opportunities to lose money falling through the cracks. So we're extremely successful in that particular service.
So I guess the follow-up to that is this only for Michigan chiropractors, or is this for chiropractors from like a global stance or a domestic stance? Who is this for?
Well, this is for everyone in the eventuality of it. Right now, we are working with mainly Michigan practices. We actually have some initial quotes for doctors in New York coming up this week. So we create a proposal for particularly the billing service, but we also offer other services to DCs. We have an insurance branch, which is called AmeriProtect. We can write workers' compensation insurance in states that are friendly. They don't have a state-run work comp program. The goal with the work comp program is to become totally self-insured, a total chiropractic-owned work comp insurance company. We do credit card processing. We do other consulting and practice growth. So we're a true management services organization by our charter.
Bit of information there. Let's talk more about the Mac. Okay, I was just up there in the spring. You could share a little about how Mac is where it is today. And I know that you've been involved with the Mac for some time.
You know, the Mac is, some people say, what is the secret sauce of Michigan? I don't know. I asked some of my mentors what that was. Why is Michigan the way it is? I just think that we work together, and we don't like to take the old pie and cut it up into the same pieces. We want to build a bigger pie. And I think that's the solution overall for the profession at large. And because we work together and we merged organizations, we know all the old wounds and wars that we used to have. So, sometimes we take a look back at history and just continue to focus on the wounds and the adversity and the divisiveness. But we learned a way, and our way was that we needed to take a look at our scope of practice, and we had huge insurance abuses. They were very abusive to us. They're not any better necessarily at this point, but we have more victories and wins with them than we would have if we were not a united state. So I can't imagine us being where we are. We successfully passed the scope of practice at the time when I was the president. I always say it was a huge team effort. I just happened to have the luxury of being there and working with the team. And, we've passed some great integrated practice corporate law here, where chiropractors can own entities and share the profitability with other healthcare providers. And that was not on the books until probably about 3-4 months ago.
Well, it sounds progressive, and it sounds like a microcosm of what the rest of our profession should be looking towards, or maybe our whole country. So,
well, like you and I were talking a little bit earlier, I said you can either be on the sidelines watching the parade or get in. So, we think we need to be in the parade, and I think we can be a bright light for other healthcare professionals. I often look for an uptick in the self-esteem of chiropractors and state associations, national organizations to get on board with that. And that's why I choose to hang around. We've got a self-esteem issue that we need to take care of. And chiropractic is the greatest profession in the world, not just from a hype standpoint. Sounds good on a podcast. It's the truth.
Well, I was telling you off cameras that the only three things that differentiate a chiropractor is their education, their technique, their amount of debt. It sounds like you've helped them understand that you need more consistent money with better quality of life. And I always think that somebody better with stones, they do understand, and even there's trust involved in the, and there's a lot more about what's might be doing than focus on what they're doing.
Well, through that breakup, I caught a couple things. I know that my video looks good on my end. I don't know how it is for you. Just to kind of pick up with that, I know that there's, a sentiment around in the profession that a bicameral system is the best way to go, just because we have that simply in our government. I find that a bicameral system isn't necessarily a drawback for the chiropractic profession. So I think we need to stop leaking money and cohesively work together. And I can lead the podcast if I need to, because I see that you dropped off. So my message is to everybody is just to take a look and create a bigger pie, for the profession. The public certainly deserves that. I know that the younger generation of chiropractor, the newer grads, that they don't even understand some of the old wars. One area I would point to is Dr. Sportelli's most recent video for what went on in the Wilk antitrust suit and the abuses that occurred over the years and the ability to contain and eliminate the chiropractic profession. So I think Dr. Sportelli's, if I had a share and wanted to direct a young doctor to take a look at something, they don't have the awareness of what's gone on out there in the real world, you'd understand and you'd join every association that meant something to the profession and give back to it. Yeah, I was talking about Dr. Sportelli's Contain and Eliminate video that I had a chance to watch just a couple of weeks ago, and the correlating book that goes with it. And I thought, Dr. Sportelli did an awesome job. I mean, he's been very, very close and intimate to, the improprieties against the chiropractic profession over the years. And, that's part of history that we do want to remember. If we forget that, somebody will come along and contain and eliminate the profession because we don't necessarily represent anything that's parallel to their belief systems. But I have confidence and faith in God and power, and that right always wins and good wins.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, Life Chiropractic College West. Let's hustle. So one of my good friends, Roberto Monaco, will always tell me this: if we don't tell our story, someone else will make up one about us.
I totally agree.
And it sounded like you were giving some advice to young DCs or DCs to be about the Sportelli work, but let's talk about a little bit of marketing. I know you've been in this profession for 37 years, so just jumping into it, if you had some advice to give to a chiropractor on marketing and business or practice growth, what would that be today?
Well, I like the grassroots idea of things. I think being involved in your community is extremely important. There's plenty of organizations. Younger docs are not necessarily joiners by heart. My generation was always a join. You joined a club, you joined something, Chamber of Commerce. We've been involved with our Chamber of Commerce basically since day one. And it's an awesome source of referrals. And there's a little time investment, small cost, huge returns, because once you meet key individuals in the community, you're the go-to. So become the go-to in your community by making friends and creating valuable relationships with other people.
I agree. I think that's really sound advice. When I was working in an office, the doc that was running the office had me in a professional network group. They had me in a leads group, and they had me on the chamber. So I'd go to like 3 meetings a week representing the office. And I tell you, man, throughout that experience, a lot of people came into us because we were likable.
Mm-hmm.
And when you show up and you like talk to people and you tell people the chiropractic story, those are the people that stay, pay, and refer. And they're the ones that send in their grandkids, and they're the ones that send in their families, and they're the ones that send in their coworkers.
Absolutely.
So when people want to talk about building referral-based practices, you got to go out there and interact with your local network, your chambers and such. I think it's great advice.
The other thing too, James, I would share is that it's when you have your hands on people, your table talk matters.
Oh yeah.
You know what you got to say around. When's the last time you actually asked for a referral? I learned from Fred Schofield the parable of the 4 seeds. If you put 4 seeds, one of them is going to germinate because it will find the fertile soil. Some of it will wash away. Some of it will find the harsh ground and not root. But if you hand out enough 4 seeds and ask, people do want to support their chiropractor. They want to support all their healthcare professionals. That's why they go to them in the first place. So
that's how you grow a thriving big practice, is the power of asking.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about this beloved profession of chiropractic. I know you do a lot within the MAC, and you do a lot of political moves for the future of chiropractic. This is almost like a give me question to you: is where is the profession going?
I think the profession is going to the rightful place that it's longed for. We're doing a lot more of the right things that we just didn't do. So it's easy for me to support the strategic plan as it exists right now because it's got that whole heart, and the individuals that are involved with that, if they were out just doing things individually, would not nearly be as influential, as strong as where we are. So to me, it's the quintessential example of when you bring people together, you get exponential results. You create exponential ideas. And when you create great exponential large-sized ideas, people want to participate. So, we've been donation-driven. Everybody that started in the strategic plan was basically a donor. We raised money in a room several different times, basically right out the chute. So the mindset is to create, unity without a sense of uniformity. That the beauty of the profession is that not everybody is the same. And if we recognize the beauty that's there, we don't have to be the same. And we can have awesome non-siloed offices where people practice together and quit spending this leaky money that goes out and doesn't come back to the profession. We should be cohabitating together, not only with other chiropractors, but other healthcare professionals.
Well, I really believe that. I tell people this when I go out and do my marketing screenings. I tell people that, most people don't take care of themselves because they don't know where to go or who to trust. And I think that that's the same kind of like idea for the chiropractic profession. Most people don't know where to put their money because they don't know where to go or who to trust. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like you guys are doing a lot of strategic plan to make sure that people have a place that they can call home. And I think that that's a real concern for me, is the profession's become very fragmented where people think that they should be supporting. And I think that what you guys are doing is developing a system. Once again, when there's a system in place and there's participation and there's consistency, a lot of things can get done.
And I think you're right. The consistency and the transparency is vital. So, visiting the ChiroFuture, I always stumble on the website, but chirofuture.com website is the transparency of the whole initiative. Everything's right out in the open. So, and we're always available for questions as individuals and work groups. We don't call our groups committees for a reason. We call them work groups because we will work. We roll up our sleeves and we get work done.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm from Iowa. You're from Michigan, and we're blue collar America. And I always joke around with everybody I meet. And I'm like, if you want something done right, ask an Iowan.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, they can take it from seed to harvest, can't they? We can take raw materials, rubber and steel, and make cars. So you're right. We're production people.
Yeah, man, it's a blessing to grow up in the Midwest. I think it does something for, as I was always told, the work ethic. And it's cool to see that Michigan is thriving with you up there. So I know you did talk about earlier, you were leading into some of your heroes and some people that have made an impact on your career. Maybe we could talk about a couple of those.
Sure. I would say one of the biggest impact individuals are both my mother and father. And if my father told my mother's chiropractic story, he'd cry during it because she, I know you asked for miracles. Maybe I'm bumping ahead on your line of questions, but my mom's miracle was she didn't have a liver transplant because as strong as she is and bullheaded as she is, she had to wait until her son got out of chiropractic college to go to the chiropractor. But by that time, the drugs that she was on had done such significant damage to her liver that they said, you're going to be on the liver transplant list. So through chiropractic care, my mom got off of all the drugs. Her liver enzymes returned to normal. And chiropractic saved my mother's life. And she's a thriving, healthy 82-year-old woman. And I have a 86-year-old father. And I see them in my office every week here for an adjustment. So they are awesome mentors. Like you said, coming from a blue collar background, my dad is blue collar as they get, working for Ford Motor Company. I wouldn't change that education process for any college degree in the world. So
that's cool. Yeah, it's important to give reference and to know that the people that made us are the ones that I always talk about, people that podium and people that become doctors and people that become, professional athletes or whatever. It's not the athlete or that coach that day. It's the people that took that athlete to all the practices, that got them onto select teams, that made sure that their uniforms were clean, the ones that made sure that all of the dues were paid for the select team, made sure that they had travel arrangements. There's so many people that stand on that podium or that get that medal with that athlete or that doctor. And one of my favorite questions to ask young doctors is, are you the first doctor in your family? And I think that when people do recognize their parents as an influence on them, it just shows that it's not just you that has that DC after your name.
Right.
It's the people that helped you to the point where you knew that you had the potential to do that.
Yeah. I know back in the day, the graduates from life, the parents got what they call a PhD, was putting him or putting her through. And there was a certificate that they received at the time of graduation when their son or daughter graduated from the college. So my parents have a PhD degree because they certainly put me through.
That's really cool. So I guess at this juncture, we're almost at the edge of our interview. Let's talk a little bit more about things that you like. I know that you like hiking, and I think you're into some adventure and stuff. So let's talk a bit about the things that you like to do to stay healthy.
Well, we like to speak what our thoughts are and be congruent. My wife's a certified health coach.
Nice.
She's helped many people to get to a healthy weight loss and a lifestyle that they dream of. So we're not perfect in congruency. We have some fun times with some friends, and obviously sometimes that involves dining out in a couple beverages. That's a certainty. But I think, there's always got to be a balance and congruency that's there. Otherwise, we personally get uncomfortable. We do like a sense of adventure. I love to read. I've got a book going constantly, either on health or personal development. The most recent book that I read was Give and Take by Adam Grant. And it's a phenomenal book. I recommend it. So, for the people who are watching, if you're not reading, you're missing out. You're the most important resource there is for your family, if not for yourself. And schooling never ends.
Yeah, that's really cool. I just finished Never Split the Difference. It's about hostage negotiation, and it helps you frame how to communicate to people so much better. And I think that, like you said, even when you don't know, you can always learn. And there's books out there for everybody. And even if it's not your genre per se, you can find something that works for you. Chiropractic books. What's your favorite chiropractic book?
Well, I like to go back to the 33 Principles. I love Fred Barge's Are You the Doctor, Doctor? Fred was definitely in his zone. Always loved it when he came here to Michigan to teach. So, from a mentorship, Fred was definitely on the list. So I would say Fred's collection, as well as going back to the old roots with Stevenson. And I've got a healthy bookshelf in the back full of green books. I find them hard to read, but at the same token, there's always something in there for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, if people want to learn more about you or work with you, where can we send them to?
Well, I can be reached via email. My email is reno@michicare.org. Our website for MichiCare, if you want to learn more, is michicare.org. And our insurance arm related to MichiCare is ameriprotect.us. So those three websites are helpful in the practice realm. And I can be reached via my cell phone. So I'll give anybody some time, especially young docs and who are looking for a way to, like you said, figure their way out of some debt and get their roots planted somewhere.
Well, at this juncture, is there anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I would like to share with the audience that James Chester is a rock star. And I want to thank you for having me here. And I know your job's not finished and there's going to be many more of these. If you tug on my shirt sleeve here or my coat tail or whatever, I'd be happy to give you a list of people who I think you can tap on the shoulder that would step up to the opportunity and bring forward a good message for your viewers.
I'll definitely take you up on that offer. And with that, just really appreciate you being episode 413 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Great episode. Thank you for being my guest today.
My pleasure. We'll see you again soon.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Right.
Have
Bye-bye.
a great day.
You too.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.